It has been 5 years since the release of the last major Tales game, and we've waited patiently amidst the ongoing pandemic for Tales of Arise to finally be released. We are now a couple of days away from having our hands on the game, and amazingly, Tales of Arise seems to deliver on the promise of evolving the Tales of series without forgetting tradition. Hey everyone, I'm Abby745 from Abyssal Chronicles, the biggest Tales of series fansite and news collective run by fans for fans. Joining me on this joint review are AC staff DimensionSlip and Kiki. Please say hi, guys.
Hi!
Hi, I'm Kiki. I help run social media and handle various odd jobs.
The three of us played on different platforms. I played on the PlayStation 5 with majority of the time in the prioritized frame rate option, with the game on my local hard disk.
I played on a Japanese 1TB PS4 Slim, and I downloaded the game onto the system's local hard drive.
I played on the PC, and these are my specs and settings. The whole time I played on a 23-inch monitor, and these are my graphics settings. And note that I didn't really change anything from the defaults, and I didn't really have any problems with them. And when I checked the options, these seem to be the highest settings.
So we did this to give a better comparison of what each version of the game has to offer. And although we're all veteran Tales fans, we will strive to give a very objective review. This is also a no-spoiler review for those who want to fully immerse themselves once they get their copies.
I want to fight.
But for what? What are you fighting for?
Tales of Arise tells us the story of the twin worlds of Dahna and Rena. For the past 300 years, the Dahnans have been under the tyrannical rule of the Renans, working them to the bone in order to obtain the planet's astral energy. Our hero is Alphen, also known as the Iron Mask, a slave with no face, no memories, and also the peculiar condition of not being able to feel any pain. In the daily toils of his life of slavery, he gets caught up in the resistance group known as the Crimson Crows, as well as our heroine, Shion, a Renan who has the Curse of Thorns, which makes any person who touches her feel excruciating pain. Of course, this being a Tales game, Alphen's story takes on a larger-than-life turn as our simple quest to free Dahna from Rena's tyranny becomes a much deeper and more convoluted plot. Here are our thoughts on the story and characters from our gameplay.
The story really grabs you from the start. Like, Alphen and Shion make intriguing impressions and make you want to know more about them. And the cast in general is very likable. Like, when I say cast, like the party members. And I like the varied party dynamics due to each of their backgrounds and purposes. Like, it also feels like each of them have a purpose or a reason to hang around Alphen. Like, it's not just to complete the whole 6 party members thing, and then everyone also develops as the story goes on. And they have like arcs that feel complete. Like, as mentioned, the story is kind of tropey, but in the fun kind of Tales way.
As someone who has played through the entire thing, I personally found the story structure of Tales of Arise similar to Tales of Legendias in terms of how specific major plot points were divided. From a far-off perspective, the story is good, really good even, especially on how the characters were developed as the story progresses. No character gets left behind in terms of maturing themselves, and personally, to my surprise, I found no main playable character dislikable, which is kind of rare for a Tales game for me. Each and every character has their own charm and quirks, making them lovable and hilarious at the same time. My gripe about the story, however, is that some more detailed plot points in the game feel a little bit forced and predictable. I found myself casually thinking at the back of my head, without spoiling anything, something along the lines of, oh, maybe this character might be this character's mom, which is not the actual case, this is just like an example, only to laugh at myself later because the game makes it just that. A lot of certain plot points at the near end of the game also feel a bit shoehorned in and forced out of nowhere, giving the player little time to sympathize. Personally, this particular parts could have benefited from the same pacing that the first half of the game had. Tales of Arise boasts the use of the Unreal Engine for this entry in the series, along with the new atmospheric shader that makes environments look as if they were painted. Bandai Namco has also vastly improved on facial expressions and movements of the characters, along with the help of motion capture actors. The whole atmospheric shader for me is beautiful on the PlayStation 5. In areas where foliage is abundant or areas which are basically outdoors, the painted look works really well. However, personally, the prioritized frame rate versus prioritized graphics options to me made not much of a difference. The painted look also doesn't really work that obviously in places that are indoors or intricate, such as palace-like areas. That, however, doesn't mean that it looks bad. Even for places like that, they still look really, really good and almost to the point of realistic. Visual representation of the game is beautiful, specifically on the main menu, which changes its art and design for every major plot point of the game. You will find no trace of any 2D anime art here, as the game tries to fully utilize the 3D models, and it actually works. Status screens and character icons are replaced by the characters' 3D models, for example, and they fit the overall game aesthetic. Skits having moved on to fully 3D will feel jarring to old-time Tales fans, but will probably be just right for newcomers. And as advertised, all costumes, accessories, and hairstyles will reflect in all cutscenes with one major exception, which I will not talk about because it's a spoiler. Something to note is the inability to readjust attachments in terms of size and position. Most of the attachments, however, have color variations, but are not as customizable as previous games like in Berseria. There are also animated cutscenes as promised by UFO Table, but for me they felt somewhat on a lower par quality than the usual UFO Table output. Either that or a part of me just found the 3D characters much prettier than the 2D animation. Like, I probably wouldn't bat an eye if they made away with 2D anime cutscenes and just went for full 3D.
Although Tales of the Arise is the first title to utilize Unreal Engine 4 instead of an in-house engine, it has certainly taken full ownership of the platform with their atmospheric shader to create stunning, immersive graphics that look almost hand-painted, which not only sets it apart from recent 3D-style games, but gives it that unique feel akin to the older cel-shaded entries. The downside, however, is the loading times, at least for PlayStation 4. Finer details sometimes take time to display. Textures are initially blurred and need a second or two to render, especially in areas new to the player. While some of this delay could be purposefully designed to give the illusion of distance, even closer objects sometimes take time to optimize. On the upside, clipping issues are surprisingly rare, and NPCs actually navigate around you if you stand in their way. In fact, the sheer fluidity of the character models actually made the anime cutscenes seem almost out of place, which makes the exclusion of 2D portraits surprisingly difficult to miss. Yes, the game has been streamlined in some aspects, but both the evolving artwork used on the menu screen and the accompanying pieces included with the tooltips are gorgeous. I may be an Inomata fangirl at heart, but Iwamoto as the sole art director was a solid choice and fits with the game's overall theme of unity.
Tales of Arise's new battle system promotes the use of making combos and dodging perfectly in order to achieve the best in battle. The game makes use of the ground arts and aerial arts, bringing the maximum number of arts to 12 eventually as you progress through the game. Our experiences differ a bit per platform.
At first it took me a while to get used to using the RB button to attack because it didn't feel natural to use the shoulder button for it. And initially also like there were too few art buttons, so you only had like 3 for ground and then 3 for aerial, and it's kind of limiting. Although they expand this later, I feel like it's too late when they do that. Like, let's say for Shion, you know it's good to have one set for her offensive set and another for her support or casting or healing set, but you can't do that until later. And then in terms of mechanics, this game really forces you to learn how to dodge. If you're the type of player who's used to just, jumping in and like just spamming a button, it's very hard to do at the beginning because early on, it's very punishing when you get hit, and then it's hard to access healing resources, and if you don't dodge, and it will take you a while before you can actually get life bottles because you don't have gold or access to them either. So it's it really um forces you to learn that. And on another note, I play on PC with a controller, and just to test things out, I tried the keyboard for a bit, and surprisingly, it's also very playable on the keyboard. Like, it just all boils down to your preference if you prefer the controller or the keyboard. And yeah, I didn't have trouble with moving around or like toggling the camera angles because they're both smooth in either methods.
To be honest, I'm a semi-auto kind of gal, so my thoughts may be moot to more hardened players who ramp up the difficulty and go for crazy combo counts. Nonetheless, my gripes lie in the default button choices, which can be remapped. Relegating basic attack to a shoulder button, in this case R1, and having to hold down 2 face buttons to trigger a mystic art just didn't feel intuitive, but the demo did help in easing into it. The limitation of art buttons was also disappointing at first, but thankfully gets expanded as you progress through both the skill panels and art proficiency, and boost arts become crucial to gaining the upper hand in battles, if used correctly. Arise definitely forces you to utilize dodging, and if misjudged, can result in some pretty punishing blows. Surprisingly, however, the addition of diminishing returns for spamming the same art over and over again actually resulted in me being more engaged instead of wanting to pop a holy bottle every 2 seconds, which, by the way, they don't exist here. Though the battle system has a propensity to become overwhelming, initial tutorials and subsequent party dialogue do a good job at easing you into things, and there is a nice balance struck between the ratio of tutorials to game progression. Overall, the battle system does borrow a variety of elements from previous installments, with a new spin relative to current market trends, and the resulting mix provides a fair challenge. I will say, though, that cure points, or CP, are the bane and easy to forget about until you realize that the heals have just stopped coming. So be sure to utilize campsites often, though be warned that also refreshes area enemies, and watch your item stock.
From what we saw in the demo, there are a lot of things to do in the fields of Tales of Arise. The maps feel similar to Berseриa's, but with more gimmicks. Your characters can jump around, fall from really high places, sprint like mad without any stamina gimmick, which is a good thing for me. There are a bunch of ores around the map, ingredients to collect, and herbs to harvest, which are almost always strategically placed behind a bunch of enemies you have to fight, or are hard to maneuver around away from. There are also enemy indicators on screen which give you an idea of nearby enemies, but I rarely use them since I fight most of the enemies I encounter along the way. There are a few hiccups wherein there's this, for example, perfectly short mass of land in front of me, but the character can't jump on it because of reasons, so you have to go around it. CP is also used on map actions that utilize characters to do stuff to aid in exploration. For example, Dohalim can grow plants you can climb on or make rock bridges to cross another area. Kisara can disperse toxic gas with her shield. I don't really know. But anyway, these map actions are expensive and utilize the CP that you should only be using for healing. You'll find yourself using camp or using orange and pineapple gels a lot in the beginning, and they're not exactly cheap.
Oh no, I was just curious. Did you fortify your right side more because that's your dominant side?
Tales of Arise features a lot of new gimmicks in the game to enjoy on the side, such as camping, finding owls, fishing, raising animals in a ranch, cooking, and forging. Generally, Tales of Arise features a few new things. Aside from skits, you can also view all animated cutscenes so far when you do camping. There are dialogue options with specific characters that you can do as the story progresses and as you go through many battles. And take it from me, please keep doing them. Not only are they a part of trophies or achievements, depending on what you're playing, they do unlock something awesome. And cooking can only be done in camps and give you bonuses mostly for battles and exploration. It's not really different from the old games.
Forging is nice and makes good use of the foraging nodes and battle spoils, though it's nothing revolutionary. The ranch is a fun little side quest with moderate rewards, but nothing aside the potential trophy really compels me to go out of my way, no matter how many times law might remind me that my farm animals have reached maturity.
Hoo-hoo.
I really love the owls. They sound so fake to the point that it's funny. So the more owls you find, the more rewards the Owl King will give you. Most of these rewards are alternate color costumes or basic costumes for the characters. Although, like they said, sometimes it's kind of hard to find them or to interact with. For some owls, there's a specific distance you have to be in order to have the examine button pop up.
There is no tutorial to accompany fishing when you unlock it, and you have to figure out things yourself. The minigame is okay, at first I found it on the so-so side, but eventually I ended up like spending 30 minutes trying to fish. So, which is to say, I guess I kind of enjoyed it eventually. But yeah, the fun part is, I guess, you can sell the fish you catch there for gold, which again is an important resource because you will be spread thin between refilling items and upgrading your equipment.
Arise features a soundtrack by Tales veteran composer Motoi Sakuraba and also the use of the opening Hibana by Kanda Copiero, as well as utilizing additional songs by Ayaka.
The opening grew on me, both in English and in Japanese, as they do alternate, and I found myself, much like with the other entries, unable to skip it whenever I loaded up the game. It may not be Dean's Yume de Aruyoni, but it can be an earworm. With Sakuraba back at the helm, this game definitely screams Tales. Admittedly, some of his music is hit and miss with me within the franchise, and this trend continues in Tales of Arise. Some tracks can easily grow tiring, while others make the impact of the story more poignant. You know, using the violin to tug at the heartstrings. Overall, it feels as if his tracks carried a certain extra weight to them and sounded more robust in a way. This could certainly be attributed to the fact that he was working with a full-size orchestra, but also that Arise has somewhat more mature themes. If anything, my oral beef was with the enemies. Unlike the endearing monster growls in Tales of Destiny and Tales of Exilia, Zoogles made annoying, repetitive noises. But hey, at least no one was screaming about fresh mutton?
A sword that sears the hand of he who wields it, and a healing art to mend. A man numb to pain, and a woman whose very touch deals nothing but.
Given that the new brand manager is Tomizawa, known for his work producing the God Eater series and Code Vein, there will inevitably be murmurs and comparisons to his previous works, as well as with Scarlet Nexus, which released earlier this summer and has several familiar Tales staff members credited to it. While it would be a lie for me to say that there are no aspects of these games that may have played a part in influencing Arise, it is ultimately still a Tales game at its core. The story is compelling and contains several key elements present in other entries, and the characters will fit right into crossover games such as Tales of the Rays with ease. Tomizawa certainly had his work cut out for him by inheriting and evolving the series, but every quality of life update made is reasonable and dare say welcome given the advancement of video games and current market trends. By not rushing to make it merely an anniversary title and further delaying the release due to the pandemic, the whole game seems overall more polished and solid. What makes Tales, well, Tales, is certainly subjective depending on who you ask. But as a longtime fan of the series, I personally feel as if those skepticisms can be put to rest, as the heart of the series is well represented within Arise, and the game will appeal to both older and new fans alike.
Tales of Arise is a level up from the previous games. I think keeping the character aesthetics and battle system similar to the series staples goes a long way to preserve what makes the Tales of series beloved by many. Um, all the same, while experimenting with things such as the environments is a good change from how it was, and lifestyle features such as inns not costing any money to make up for the golf scarcity in the game was also a good move. And I really appreciate all the quality of life improvements they've made. Overall, I'm really glad that they took the time to polish it, like what Kiki said, instead of rushing it into making it an anniversary title, because it really shows how much more polished it is, and um, even though there are some bugs, it's not like things that heavily impact like user enjoyment. So I think this was a good move overall, and something that there's something for everyone in this game.
Tales of Arise is pretty solid. The graphics are great, battles are fun, and although the story presentation could use a bit of more exploration or extension, personally the game in itself is a very solid and very complete Tales title. Some fans fear that the changes swerve it away from being a traditional Tales title, but that's the point. The series is evolving and it's taking the necessary steps, and so far, these steps have been promising. For more Tales of Series news and updates, please visit abyssalchronicles.com and all our social media channels.